Greetings traders, this is Houston Trong with thetradingedge.org, and here is your weekly market outlook for September the 2nd to the 6th, 2019. First and foremost, August is now in the books, so it was quite the wild and woolly August. We had a number of sharp pullbacks on equities, but the month of August is now done, and historically September does not fare much better for the markets. So let's spend some time this video going into the month that was, and of course we'll peel back the layers and try to see potentially where markets could go for the month of September. So looking on the economic calendar, there are a couple of things. First off, this is of course a shortened trading week because of the holiday. We have Labor Day on Monday, so North American equities traders will be off that day, and news kind of picks up on Thursday, Friday. So on Thursday, you want to watch the employment report, or excuse me, the jobs claims report on Thursday, and then we have that unemployment report coming out on Friday. On the earnings front, it's kind of quiet until Thursday. We have a lot of companies reporting, and then kind of petering off on Fridays. But just do again, make sure you're checking out the earnings calendar. So let's switch gears now and jump into the charts and talk about the month that was, and of course keep our eyes out for the month coming up. As we always do, let's take a look at the VXX contract first. So VXX is, of course, the VIX ETN contract, and it was an interesting month, right? So VXX closes the month solidly in green. So we had a plus 14.5% month for VXX. This chart, however, as I've been saying for the past month or so, does not show the whole picture, because here you have an inside bar reversal, inside bar down, and it goes inside bar back up, but this pivot high here does not take out that pivot high. So why is that important? Because if you're short here, that means you stop, you'd either put it there or there. That's using this chart, then you would not be stopped out yet. The reality is that if you include the pre-market and aftermarket data, then this actually did take out these pivot highs. So if we take a look at the VIX futures contract, which I'll use now for analysis, this is what it looks like when you're actually using pre-market and aftermarket data and looking at the futures contract. So these folks who went short here in June, thinking that we're going to have a low volatility market, they shorted this bar, maybe they put their stop there and there, they got taken out this month, and boy did they ever, right? So this month here, although it closes up 17%, at one point up here, it was up at 23.60, right? We're now trading at 18.82, but it was at 23.60 all the way up here. That was, 3 weeks ago. So what we see now is that VX futures had a nice green month. It did have a red week though this week, so this week did pull back. And on the day we had a day, a day where we had a green day here, and it really does contrast with that VXX ETN. And I'll show that one last time after we're done our analysis here. But what you're looking at here now on the VIX futures contract is this situation here on the 2-day chart. Inside bar up, it did that right on the 23rd. Then it went inside bar, and now it's come back down again because it did inside bar up. You ran out of buyers. The buyers cannot break above this previous trend line high, and now it's having a hard time to come back into the range. So you want to watch to see if this thing continues to melt downwards as we enter into the month of September. So you really want to be watching where does price transact with that new and fresh weekly open and monthly open. That's going to be very important across all the instruments you're looking at, not just the VIX contract, but all of them. Now back to VXX, which is the ETN. Here's the difference. So this kind of tells the picture when you begin to include gaps. Okay, so if you recall, the last couple weeks I've been saying we have this 29.67 level unfilled gap. It was very surprising last week that it couldn't fill that gap. It came very close here this last Friday, not this past Friday, but last Friday, the 23rd. So last Friday we came within, I think it was 21 cents. Yeah, 29.46 was the high here, and 67 was the gap right there. And we came within 21 cents, and it couldn't do it that day. So this coming week, Monday opens up as an inside day. It goes inside bar and up, and then Wednesday, it goes up again. It gaps up, fills the gap, and immediately they sell it, right? So you get that flush, and you have a big red day on Wednesday and Thursday. On Friday, you actually have an outside day on VXX. Now contrast that with the VIX futures contract, we actually had a red day. So we had a bit of a divergence there between the VIX futures contract and the VXX. I think it's predominantly because the VXX, the traders who trade that are sort of it's a pairs trade between VXX and SPY. I think is more closely correlated in those events because as you'll see in a few moments, many of the indices had outside days. So back to the VXX contract, just something to watch out for. Again, you have that gap fill now, so it's pulling back in, but you do have that outside day on the daily chart. So everything else is equal, right? So you have the green month, the red week this past week, but we have this outside day and we need to watch out for now going into September. So on Tuesday when the market's open, where do we go? Do we go outside bar down, outside bar up, or outside bar inside? Okay, so watch that scenario, or a variation of that, meaning it pops up or down, and then goes back into the range again. And that's range trading. Here's what you want to watch out for. Ultimately, here's a very, very slow Friday afternoon, and you'll see this across all of the indices for the most part, I believe. Here, right there. Zoom in. Okay, so we had a bit of a volatility there in the morning, right, where it took up both sides of the range, gaps down, comes back up through the range again, right? So gap down, comes back through the range, and goes inside bar. So where now on Tuesday how do we break this outside inside pattern? Gap up, gap down, or it goes somewhere in the range. Contrast that with what happened here on Wednesday. So this was kind of the big reversal that happened during the week. Right there on Wednesday when they did the gap fill, this is a gap up, as I told you. It gapped up, gap filled, and then they sold it, right? So it went back and came through. It just ran out of time. Wednesday could have been an outside day, but the seller just basically ran out of time. And then on Thursday, they basically gapped it down. So this would have had it been, had they had more time during the day, you could have seen an outside day here on VXX. But basically, it's that here. If I take a look here on 2-day chart, I don't know if you're gonna see it or not. Yeah, not gonna quite see it because it's not gonna show up there. But it creates this situation here. So here goes outside and up. Outside, inside, it gaps up. Here is your Wednesday, and it comes back to the range. Notice that there? That's called a failed breakout. Okay, so that's what happened here. It's a failed breakout. This is why it's nice to see it on multiple time frames. It's a failed breakout. So they go outside, inside, and up. That fails as soon as that low gets taken out, or basically as soon as it starts to come back in here, it takes out this outside bar high. There's a chance it comes back out through the other side, and that's exactly what happened here because you create a broadening formation this way. So it comes in, fail reversal or failed breakout, comes back in, everyone gets stopped out in the sequence. Goes all the way down to here. Stops out everyone, not this guy here though. So this guy's still a possibility of getting taken out. Now, on to SPY. So SPY now did not create the outside day, but certainly there was some strong selling most of the day. So for SPY, what do we have for the monthly chart? Well, we end up with a month where it's red on the month, but they did not get a chance to close near the lows. So you're kind of like sort of a closing at the halfway point in this bar. But the pattern is still there: outside, up, and then down. The issue here now is if for sellers, it's still trading below July's lows. If the sellers can step back up here again, this pivot is still potentially the target. Right, so this is still potentially a pivot that could be in play there, and that's what you need to be watching out for, because this will coincide with that low. On the weekly side, this is what we have. So the weekly, we have an inside bar. So prior to the end of the week here, on Friday, we finally broke this inside bar condition because it was really, really tight trading for most of the week. We stayed basically inside of that prior week's range for most of the week until Friday. We gapped up a little bit, right? As I mentioned already, we had that gap up, but they sold it off. They sold it back into the range again. So failed breakout on the daily chart. That's what it looks like on the daily. So all the indices look like this. So if you recall, as I've been kind of pointing out, 294.15 is the pivot to be watching for, because this is this pivot high here. Why is that important? Well, why is that a notable pivot? Because if you look at and I showed this to you, I think it was the last week prior. Yeah, week prior. If you look at the 24-hour chart, which includes the pre-market, after-market data, that's actually an outside bar. Okay, so here's your outside bar right there. And finally, this Friday's action took out that pivot high. Again, I was very surprised last Friday, or this is actually Thursday, that we did not take out that pivot high. It came close, but it had to do a bit of sort of trading around, a bit of price discovery before it finally took out that pivot. The reason why that pivot's important is because people have their stops there. And now that the outside bar has been taken out, it creates a broadening formation, so a bigger megaphone potentially, right? So that creates the high of this megaphone pattern, And now, if this thing coming back through the range, if we break below the low on Friday, we could potentially coming back through that range once again. Something to be watching out for as a possibility. Okay, so that's what it looks like on Friday. Now, here's the interesting trading on Wednesday. As I said already, I'll go back to the daily chart here. Go back to the daily chart. Actually, yeah, we had the failed breakout on the daily, right? So this happened right there. So let me show up here on the 2-day chart first. Here's the consequence of that, right? So here, breaks up, takes out that pivot high. So you can see that pivot high on the 2-day chart. There's an outside bar. So now the issue is that this could potentially create an inside bar reversal. So inside bar up. If this low gets taken out, this 2-day low gets taken out, we potentially come back through the range again, coming back through this stuff. All right, so that's what you need to be watching out for. On the 4-hour chart, here we go, just like the VIX, the VXX, outside, inside. So we want to watch on Tuesday how this resolves. Does it, break up or break down, and then, starts to come back through the range. Let's take a look at the Qs now. Okay, the picture on the Qs, it looks a little bit like the SPY, a little bit different in some ways. But here's a pattern, red on the month, and very, very tight trading for the past 2 weeks. Let's look at the weekly chart now. We have 2 consecutive inside weeks. So this thing is coiling, right? The trading here is very, very tight stuff. On the daily, it is really defined by gaps and stuff coming back, doing reversals. So as I've said to people in our chat room, when you have inside weeks or anytime you have inside conditions, you can expect reversals to happen. Why do reversals happen? Because it's not breaking outside the ranges. So in order for this thing to stay inside the range, it's going to have to reverse, right? That's the whole point of trading inside the range. If it did not reverse, it would not be inside. So if you believe it's going to stay inside, then you need to be watching out for reversals. And certainly there was a case to be made this week, last trading week of August, with most traders coming back on September, that we're going to remain inside. And surprisingly, some indices did manage to break outside their inside weeks, but they did not close outside of those inside weeks. Came right back to the range again, so reversals. So here's the story that happened on the Qs, outside day once again. So the Qs this week is actually weaker than the SPYs, still sitting inside week. All right. So the daily ends with an outside bar. Same thing on the 4-hour chart. Outside, inside. How do we resolve that guy? Okay, on the Russell. Russell's been the weakest of all the indices, as I've been mentioning for a while now. On the monthly, okay, inside bar reversal. So inside bar up, and then fails to be a breakout, and then comes back to the range, taking out the June lows. The issue here, as I said before, on the quarterly chart is this: if you can remain or start to trade below of Q2's range, or Q2's lows, excuse me, then you can potentially reclaim January's or Q1's lows. So right now we're still trading well above 145.32. As long as you trade well above that, you're gonna be inside this range here. But if you break below that, you can start trading in this guy's range. You're gonna potentially go back down again. So on the weekly chart, this is what we want to be looking for: is that the week here, it has momentum to the downside. The Russell has had momentum to the downside. Outside bar and down, down, inside. Okay, until we see a week have a higher high, meaning a high gets taken out, the momentum is still to the downside. So next week we have a chance. So not only can it break above this week's highs, invalidate the momentum to the upside, but it will also create an inside bar reversal. So there's a potential here for an inside bar reversal now, because the buyers have defended the 145.32 level. That is basically Q2's lows. Look, there's a 195.32. Well, sorry, 145.32 right there. We've had how many touches now? 1, 2, 3 weeks now. We've touched that area and popped back up again. So if the buyers can step up once again, take out this week's highs, inside bar down, potential reversal back to the upside, going back up through this range. So that would be very interesting for things to play out that way. Watch out for that. Now on the daily chart in the Russell, this is the story that we saw on the Russell and the Dow in terms of price action, but we saw, in terms of the price action pattern, but we had the same sort of a reaction on Qs and SPY. Is that on Wednesday? Here, this is what caught everyone, especially the bears. This is what caught them by surprise. So they try to break below that quarterly low, right there, 145.32. Right, let's pull it, zoom out there so you can see that 145.32. They try to sell it outside bar to close things off on the on that was Tuesday. Look very, very bearish. You have an outside day that closes below that quarterly low, right? Look what happens on Wednesday. It gaps down. So if you're a bear, you're really happy about that, right? Because you're like, yes, and not only did we close below the low of the quarterly prior quarter, but now you've actually gapped down. So it's outside bar and down. Look, immediately the buyers bought it. So you had a few extra pennies here where it went down. The buyers bought it back immediately, creating this reversal pattern right there. It goes outside bar and down, but it goes green right away and comes right back to the range. This is exactly the opposite of the VIX, right? We saw the VIX, how it filled that gap, right? And then this is the same thing on the Russell. There's no gap fill here, but they immediately bought it back, and then they create the outside down pattern. Momentum gets taken out. As soon as that guy breaks, they run out of time, and boom, comes back to the range now, potentially taking out that pivot high next week. On the 4-hour chart, really, really nice trading action here. If you understand what you're looking at, right there's a sequence. Outside, inside, right, to end Tuesday. It looks very bearish, right? Outside bar, inside bar. This is exactly what you want to see happen if you're a seller. Like, man, momentum to the downside. Unfortunately, most momentum signals fail. So here, most breakouts fail. This is a breakdown. Inside, outside, inside. Breaks to the downside. Buyers buy it right back. As soon as it takes out that pivot high, it's ripping right back through. They simply run out of time, but then the rest of the week, they're in control. Until Friday. Look what happened on Friday. The reversal. It's the mirror reversal. Not quite the mirror reversal, but exactly the same, but kind of in reverse. If you look at the daily chart. So here you gap it up, and you come back to the range again. They ran out of time. They come really close to taking out that low on the Russell. If you recall, on the Qs it did do that. On the Qs, it gaps up. They basically gapped up, and that was the high of the day. It opens at 188.94. The high is 188.97. So within 3 cents was the high they right at the open. They sold right back through. This time they take out that high and go right back through the range. Okay, so right back through that range, creating that outside day. So back to the Russell now. What we want to be watching out for is that same thing, yeah, on the 4-hour, outside, inside on the 4-hour chart. Where's it resolved? So this is across the board on all the indices, exactly the same pattern. That's what makes it interesting. So Dow. Okay, so on the Dow, let's go back to the monthly chart. Dow, red for the month, outside and up, coming back to the range. Again, they're defending here. It's back up here again, but watch out if it starts to trade back down. That pivot low of June could be in play. For the week, it's a green week. Dow had a really, really strong week. I believe all 30 Dow components ended up in the green, so a good strong week for the Dow, and that allowed it to actually do an outside, inside, and up situation to close the week. Right, so that's actually very, very positive for the Dow. Dow had a very, very good week. It actually closed above the prior week's high. So if we see this situation, with Russell where we close the prior week's high, that creates the reversal. So Dow now actually looking decent, and we want to see how it trades in relation to the new month. Right now, the quarterly open is still right there. So we need to see how that gets cleared, if and how that gets cleared in the blue line. But depending where we open on Tuesday, the monthly and the weekly and weekly and monthly opens, you want to see how we're trading around those levels. Same story on the Dow. There's your Wednesday. I'm not going to get too much because we've already kind of covered it with the other indices, but same story. Okay, so Wednesday, you get your gap down, it gaps back up, they buy it. This again would have been an outside day if they just ran out of time. And then not only did we break here, we broke above it on Friday. Although they did turn it back, they did bring it back in again. Okay, but as you know now, on the 4-hour chart, we do have that outside inside to close Friday's trading. Very, very tight action there on Friday afternoon. Really not much going on. People enjoying their summer afternoons. So let's take a look at the TSX. TSX surprisingly having a pretty decent week. Okay, so it was a pretty ugly month for most of the for the past couple weeks, but this week the buyers step back into TSX. So now the month closes out as a strong doji, kind of like a momentum doji, momentum hammer. Weekly, nice strong week. I call it strong because yes, it's up 2.5%, and it goes inside week and up, so it breaks the inside week low. What you don't want to see as a seller is you do not want to see at any point this low get taken out. I'll just move it up for now. There. If this guy gets taken out, that low gets taken out, it turns into an inside bar reversal. It can go back down to the downside again. But essentially, right, so if you take a look at the monthly, the sellers in July created sort of a very, very small shooting star, a selling hammer. The buyers fought back and created a buying hammer, right? So now these guys are kind of stalemated. You're right back where you started off in the month of July and August. What that looks like is this inside quarter right now on TSX. It's very, very tight stuff. You have 1 month left, 1 month left to go, but that's how tight it is. It's gone nowhere. Look, you're up for the quarter 0.37%, gone nowhere for the quarter. Okay, so this here, although it's a lot of fun to watch, there isn't a lot going on in terms of the actual price, like in terms of actual gains or losses. Hasn't gone anywhere. Okay, so TSX, essentially here's the pattern that we want to be, what we were looking for here. If you recall last week, it was outside day and down momentum pattern, right? Going into Friday, it was outside day and down. You're going to say, well, what's the next bar going to be? Is it down, 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 down? Buyers and sellers immediately stalemate on Monday. Inside bar, bouncing off the 200-day right there. Okay, then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they keep it green the rest of the week. Inside bar up and just keeps going, taking out that prior pivot. Look right there. There's your quarterly open. Right there's your quarterly open right there. That's the only thing that's keeping this thing currently from just exploding higher. So TSX having a decent August. Let's see how it falls through in September. So let's take a look at now at emerging markets. And we had it has been kind of a rough quarter, as the quarter is now down about 6%. But we did fight back we did fight back from the lows in the month of August, because this thing was trading a lot lower last week. So this past week, the month is done now, so it does end the month minus 3.78. So still a very, very red month for EM. And here's the pattern we've been watching, right? Inside bar and up on the month. As soon as that low got taken out, they went back through the range there. On the week, good green week for the EM, close up 3% here, and we had the exact same pattern as the indices here, right? So there's your big green day on Wednesday where it gaps down and they reclaim it and they pop back up, taking out all the prior pivot highs. So that's things, it's coming back up to the range now. On the 2-day chart, just want to pop it back up. Here's our sequence, right? So here, outside bar and down, okay? They stalemate right there, and then they pop back up, taking out all the pivot highs. That's what you expect to happen, right? So this high, you expect them to take out that high. This high here is 40.20, that high there, 40.22, right? So that's exactly what you expect to see happen on that kind of pattern, because people have stops right there. Okay, let's look at TLT. TLT. Small week for TLT, but man, this thing is on fire. The month of August, did it have a good month? Yes, it did. Look, up 10.83%. So here's your outside bar up situation. Momentum all month, right? It's momentum all month. It's on the monthly chart. Look at the volume that stepped into TLT there. That's a lot of volume. So that's probably the most volume I've seen since here. Right there. August 2011. So you have to go back to the Brexit days, not Brexit, excuse me, to the Euro crisis days before we had volume that high. So TLT looking very, very strong. U.S. bonds very strong. Working in a world where we potentially are facing negative interest rates around the world. U.S. bonds still yielding something for now. So on the TLT, you have this. We have this outside up situation. That means momentum's is in full effect. You're not going to see momentum dissipate until a low can get taken out. So clearly, if you're going to get this momentum taken out in September, you have to take out the August lows. So you somehow, September, for that to happen, it's going to have to take out, and it has to have an 11% down move. Very, very difficult to do. Not saying impossible, but very, very difficult. Now, more likely, in order for momentum to dissipate, you need to wait for a smaller month to happen. Here, as an example, when you have smaller months, it's easier to take out those lows when you have smaller months. Very, very hard to pull things back and take out prior lows when you have huge months like this, right? The best you can do the next month is, if they're really going to try to sell it, is turn to an inside month. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you have to have an 11% down move to wipe out and dissipate momentum for TLT. Okay, for the week so far, the end of the month of August, it went inside weekend up. It was very, very tight trading for most of the week in TLT, but you did manage to break above the prior week's highs and actually set some new all-time highs, I believe on Wednesday. Okay, so TLT, there's your price action. Here's what you want to be watching for here now. So on the 2-day chart on TLT, you have this outside bar that went up, and then here, outside up and they went down. So they dissipated the momentum here on the 2-day chart. So now what's the next bar, right? Did they pull it back down again, coming back through the range? Or do they buy it back and then potentially pushing this thing back up again as you have, as you could have full time frame alignment, meaning if you're trading above the weekly open, you're trading above the monthly open, above the quarterly open, then there's no reason not to be a buyer. So all pullbacks are to be bought still at this point if you can find good trade location. So right now people are simply buying things like the weekly lows. Look at that, the prior week there, they're buying the weekly open, excuse me, and they're just using they're just buying around the 8-period moving average whenever it gets back there. They're defending those levels right now. People are still buying it. All right, our friend GLD now, and maybe I'll pull up the XAU chart instead. Let's go XAU. Okay, so gold along with TLT having a great some great returns this past month, this past quarter. So on the quarter, look at XAU. Gold is just getting started because we're outside quarter and up. Okay, so right now momentum is with those buyers. Green month to end the month, right? So up close to 8% on GLD, not bad. It did go inside weekend up here for GLD, XAU, excuse me. The only issue is it came back into the range. So on this coming week here, if you're a seller and if you're if you're long GLD or XAU, you do not want to see this prior week's low get taken out, because otherwise you can come back through the range. Now that doesn't mean it's going to completely fall apart, but again, that just simply means that the short-term guys will get stopped out. On longer term, except on the quarterly charts, it's outside bar up right now, so the momentum's still there. So you need to be able to reconcile those two different time frames. So on XAU, like I said, the potential inside bar reversal right there in the weekly chart if it breaks below that prior low. And on the daily chart, this is what you want to be watching for, right? Outside day and down on the daily chart. Right there. Outside day and down. Now, what's the next bar? Does it keep going down, 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 down? You want to watch for that, because that means the momentum will have dissipated, right? So here's an example. It goes outside day and down here. It goes down again, goes inside bar, it goes down some more. As soon as that high gets taken out, that means momentum's been dissipated. Look what happens. Pow, back up again. That's a nice move, right? From 1504 up to 1555. So really, really fast move in two sessions. So that's what could happen when the momentum dissipates. The buyers step back in again. So watch out for that potential same type of scenario once again. Okay, if it's too choppy for you, you look at the 2-day chart and it's cleaner. So on the 2-day chart here, right now, inside, outside. What's the next bar going to be? Down or up or inside? Okay, let's look at digital gold, Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been kind of going nowhere. It's doing a lot of nothing. A lot of talk has been, there's a lot of stuff talked about around some lawsuits that are going on and more regulation and crypto futures and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is the price action isn't doing a lot right now. It is, however, let's start this way. 3-month chart, inside quarter, right? What are you going to do? How do you get outside of this part of the Q1? This is Q2, excuse me. That was Q1 right there. Q2 had 160% return. How do you get outside this quarter? You really don't, not at this point anyways, without the buyers really stepping up or the sellers really stepping up. Right now you're down 11%. Again, contrast that with 160% return in Q2. So right now, Bitcoin is basically consolidating. Inside month for the month of July, inside month for the month of August right now, with a slight bearish bias because you're trading below the quarterly open. So it's actually easier to sell Bitcoin than to buy, but you'd also have to be aware that you're trading inside, it's inside condition, inside of a range, and the overall bias is still going to be up because the higher time frames are still up, like the yearlies. So on the weekly chart, it goes inside week and down. So the Bitcoin ends the month in week red, 5% down month for, we're not done September yet for cryptos. They're still trading until tomorrow, September. We're down 5% so far. Inside week and down for the week. Okay, next week, does it keep going down, or do you have some sort of reversal? If it's going to be a reversal, it's going to look like this. Next week, I mean. If it reverses next week, it has to do this. It has to crack 10,675 and trade above that. That's the way it's going to reverse. Right now, right, the daily, it's all the way up there, 10,675. In order for that to happen on the 2-day chart, And I believe, yes, in order for that to happen on a 2-day chart, it has to do this. Right now, outside, day, and down, down, inside. Sorry, not day, but inside bar. This is the 2-day charts. We're not talking about days here. Each bar represents 2 days. So, how do you break above one of these prior highs? Okay, so you have to break above this most previous high in order for the momentum to dissipate. Alrighty, so this means we have basically one more day left for the for trading inside of this week. Then we reset the week, and then this month resets tomorrow. So we're gonna have brand new week and month. How does price trade in relation to that? So if we open down here somewhere and all of a sudden it pops up, then that means you're gonna be green on the week and the month. The quarter will still be red here, right? But then you're gonna have a green day potentially, a green week, green month, and if you start breaking above the prior high, that means the short-term buyers are going to be in force, in control, and you have the potential for that reversal to climb back up again, and then maybe crack through here, and then potentially turning the quarter green. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. You know, we still have to break this this momentum pattern to the downside, the outside bar and down condition. Okay, but that's what a reversal would look like, and that's what I'm looking for in order to get into Bitcoin again. Because I did buy ETH I think I said that last week. I did buy ETH on the event that it could do a reversal. It did not reverse, and I happily stopped myself out because I'm not going to sit in a trade that doesn't work. And I believe yes. So here, so let me close this thing down here. So the premise was same sort of condition here. I was looking for an inside bar reversal, and if that trade was going to work, the following was going to happen. Did not work out, so I happily stopped myself out. Inside bar, it broke up. It turned the week briefly green. I think that was this week. Prior week. It turned the week briefly green, but it quickly didn't. It failed. So once I broke up below there, I got out. That trade is a loss. But had it worked, had a buyer stepped up and they could take out that pivot high, then they were going to turn that week green and potentially create that reversal on the weekly chart. But Ethereum, just like Bitcoin, it's outside week and down right now, and you need to see a high get taken out. Right now, it's not doing that. It's not even getting close. So right now, right, so we can move this condition here. You need to see this week's recent high get taken out for the momentum to dissipate. That now needs to set up on a lower time frame chart for us to see that. Right now, I'm not seeing it because it's just basically inside day right now on the past 2 days. I did get short instead, something like Zcash. I did short Zcash this past week on because everything's pointing down now. On that failed short, on that failed long, I instead took some shorts. So similar type of thought process here, except in the opposite. So inside bar reversal here, inside bar and up. Because everything else is failing. If you take a look at the condition here, see this inside week here on the Zcash, so the low of that inside week right there, drawn in green. So there's your inside week on Zcash this past week. There's your green. If we break below that low, it's an inside bar and down. So what would allow that to happen? Something like this. So on the daily time frame, I short here at the low of this inside bar break to the upside, because anyone who buys this, they're hoping for a break up, right? A break out to the upside, just like I was when I did that same trade on the Ethereum. If it fails, however, they're gonna have to cover, and here would be the stops. That green line is your actual inside week low. So on the backs of these failed longs, as these guys get stopped out, that triggers the inside week to the downside, creating this cascade downwards. So I'm still sitting short now Zcash, but already up, close to 2R on that trade. So just gonna keep that and trail. I'm gonna trim and then trail once it gets to some of my targets. Okay, the only issue with Zcash is that there isn't really any good targets, because the only pivot down left is this one here that got placed back in March when it had this big liquidity sell-off here. So it's kind of hard to have a good target. So I'm just gonna watch that closely. Now onto the total chart, which is the overall crypto markets. Looks a lot like Bitcoin, just a few minor differences. For the quarterly chart, you're still inside month. Okay, monthly chart, it did go inside month and down though, so this is a bit different than Bitcoin. It did go inside month and down. So I'm just going to draw that area in to make sure we're capturing that small point that did go inside month and down. So you want to see now, can sellers hold it below that area? Right now, look, the inside week and down triggered that inside month end down, but it popped back up again. That means the buyers bought it. So right now, right on that level also coincides with the 200-day moving average. What a coincidence, right? It's no coincidence that these things begin to line up and buyers begin to step up and defend. And there you go. They're consolidating right now on this 200-day moving average, 2 inside days now. Let's see which way they break. Just like the other crypto markets, you want to be watching for inside buy reversals this next week in order to signal a reversal back to the upside. Otherwise, short until it gets a reversal. Now let's look at UK oil, because man, oil is having some has had a rough month. So oil, okay, for the month of, well, let's start at the bigger picture. 3-month picture of oil. Inside bar reversal, right? As I've said in prior videos, here, inside bar up, back to the range, potentially low here of this is the quarter, excuse me. Inside quarter and up, and then Jan's lows or Q1's lows are potentially in play now. So far, red quarter down 8%. On the month, rough month, although not the lows, down 8%. So rough month. For the past few weeks, look how tight that is. Okay, so here you had 2 consecutive inside weeks. We broke just a smidgen lower this past week, but came back in the range. So for the most part, you're still trading in this very, very tight range. But it's still a momentum move to the downside. Outside bar and down, inside. This week is still lower. We don't have a higher high yet. You got to see one of these highs get taken out. So right now, UK oil, really, really tight trading. You want to see how the momentum continues or fades. Okay, so let's take a step back now. I'm going to give a few equity names, and then we'll wrap things up. So here's some notable charts I think are interesting going into the month of September. Something that's been coiling for a long time, I think this is going to be in play at some point very, very soon, is AMD. Look at AMD. So on the month, you have an outside bar now. This is an outside bar in AMD, but this is the pattern we've been highlighting now on the weekly chart. Very, very, very tight stuff and consolidating. Outside, inside. 3 consecutive inside weeks now. How does AMD break out of this week's range? That's what we want to be watching for. So let's draw those levels in. In what direction does AMD break this consolidation? We're sitting right at that quarterly open. Look, it nearly did it on Friday there, where things gapped up. Okay, so it gapped up, touched that quarterly open right there. Okay, but could not stay above it. Comes back in. Marijuana names, man, these are awful right now. I think people are getting interested in buying them because they're going so low. People think they're going to bottom at some point. There's no point picking up a falling knife at this point. Okay, so here you're going to have plenty of time to get in. But here is the risk. Okay, so let me show you an example. So Tilray, momentum's to the downside. Inside bar and down on the month, right? Look at the quarterly chart. This thing looks awful. Inside quarter, down. Red quarter, this thing was down 45% this quarter. Right? So it's lost most of its market cap within 1 quarter. August down 37%. Here now, it's momentum on the downside. This will not last forever. So this is when you want to, potentially get interested. It goes outside, weak and down. Momentum move to the downside. Now, when do the buyers step up? Again, momentum does not dissipate until you get one of these highs get taken out. Right? So what will cause that high to get taken out that you want to watch for? On Wednesday, it did have that bit of a reversal like the other equities, right? So your gaps are down slightly. Well, actually, did it gap down? It gapped down. Yeah, it did. Well, let's see. They closed here at 26.49. It opens, 46. So very, very small gap, 3-cent gap. Not a great one because it didn't gap below the prior low, so it didn't trap that many people. Comes back up, and then for the rest of the week it sells back off again. So this low, you want to watch this this Tuesday, this price trade back below this past Wednesday's lows and stop out any buyers who try to bottom pick right here, right? So they put their stops there. If you bought this small little bounce, if it breaks below there, those guys are gonna have to cut their losses or just eat more losses. Here's the issue. If you simply buy the high of this weekly pattern, that could be potential. But look at WW. Okay, here's an example of a company that lost like 50% of their market cap in the same sort of way. So this is Weight Watchers. So look at the quarterly chart here. So here in Weight Watchers, it dropped 46% in Q4 of last year. Q1 lost on the 47%, and then it came down 5% here. So things looked really, really bad for Weight Watchers, and it finally did bottom out. Now, if you look at this on the weekly chart, as I've been saying, you want to be looking for momentum to dissipate. So here, going into 2019, here's a momentum down signal. Momentum down, goes inside, 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 and finally it breaks up here. It finally takes out this pivot high here in March. So look, it goes outside bar and up. So that's the issue. It goes outside bar and up. He loses momentum here, and then it goes outside bar back down again. Inside break, up. So that's choppy stuff, right? This is very, very choppy stuff. Why is it so choppy? Well, because this is price discovery. That's how price discovery works, right? So you're creating lower lows, right? And you're creating higher highs as you're trying to dash. The market is trying to find out value, right? So here it creates a higher high, stops at everyone here, but then it creates a lower low, stopping all the guys who just bought this thinking it was going to go higher. So very, very tight stuff here. So just because you nail this trade to the upside, do not be surprised if this starts to happen and you get chopped up in this stuff here. That's the issue trying to catch bottoms, is that the bottoms are not always clean, and you can give a lot of money back trying to do as you get cut up in price discovery when it's very, very tight stuff like this. So here, one way to get around that is to zoom out, because that tight stuff there is this. You see how tight that stuff is? I'll just draw it in the box so you can see. Right? Oh, sorry, I gotta draw it in there. There. It's this whole box here on the monthly chart. Isn't that a lot cleaner? A lot cleaner. That chop is basically that outside bar. That's why outside bars are broadening formations. They're basically megaphone patterns. So you can make your life a lot easier by looking at something like this. Outside, inside, and up, right? And Weight Watchers has now gone up 13% in July, and up 38% in August from this breakout level here, right? So you can save yourself a lot of pain by zooming out and not trying to be, not trying to catch absolute bottoms using the lower time frames. Now, weekly is not that lower time frame, but when you see that on the weekly, that's very, very choppy stuff. So try trading this on the daily. Right, so that's the pattern now. That's wild. That's not. It's just very, very back and forth, right? So this is how you can. It's very hard to hold on to trades like this when price is doing its thing and doing its price discovery. So that's the lesson with Weight Watchers on what you could potentially be seeing with marijuana names if and when they begin to start to bottom. The bottoming is not always a V-turn bottom. Sometimes bottoms look like this, and that's where people get killed. Okay. So let's zoom out now and talk about a few other names at a high level as we enter into the month of September. So back on our high level charts, let's go to the 3-month chart. Let's talk right about marijuana again. We're talking marijuana names. Cron, this thing has been getting destroyed, so it has a little more, I think it has a little more to go still, because on the 3-month chart, inside bar and up, right, it goes inside, inside bar and up, now inside bar and down for Q3. So this thing's already down 31%. We still have a little bit left there to take out that pivot low of the Q1 lows. Okay, SFIX, same type of pattern. Okay, inside, inside, and then down. So inside bar reversal to the downside. This is the potential pivot low here of Q1 in play. GE, looked like they were going to bounce, but now they took out the prior quarter's lows, so now they're going back for the Q1 lows. Watch that. As long as you stay trading below this quarter's lows, so Q2's lows, as long as you stay below there, that's a potential pivot in play. XOP and all the oil equities names look terrible. Outside bar and down. This is actually inside bar reversal, because it goes inside bar up, they buy the breakout, it fails, comes back into the range, takes out that low, and now they're going. So outside bar down momentum now. They're getting crushed, the oil names. Okay, same thing, oil, XOP's exploration. Here's oil services. Exactly the same looking pattern. Okay, inside, outside, and down. Man, rough month. Down 23%. And last symbol to talk about, basically the mirror kind of opposite, but something looking really nice is of course GDXJ. So there's your chart on the GDXJ quarterly. So outside bar up now, going after these prior pivot highs. What's that pivot high? If you recall that yearly chart, there you go. Outside, inside, down. Okay, inside bar reversal right there, and now going back up here. I think it took that already, right? 4301. Yeah, 43.10 is the high there, so take out that guy. And now, if things keep going, we're going after 2016's highs, 52.50. All right. So as always, I hope that this video is helpful to you. If you know of any other traders that could benefit from our work, please feel free to share our videos. Please also give us a big thumbs up and leave us any questions or comments in the comments box. As always, enjoy the, this week, enjoy the long weekend. And as always, have a good week and happy trading.